Well, happy Friday, my friends. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Welcome to the PHOI Phillies podcast here on the PHOI and All City Network. Tyler Zulli with you for the next hour as we get into everything that's happened so far this week, and we'll get into the Dodgers series in just a second as well. We'll do that throughout the show. So a happy Friday. We've made it, friends. Another Friday in the books. As K-Red points out, just 3 more hours until freedom for your weekend. Whatever you're planning on doing this weekend, unfortunately, the weather's not going to be quite as nice as it was yesterday at the ballpark, but an opportunity to see baseball's best team as of right now, and probably throughout the season, but as of right now, see baseball's best team in the LA Dodgers come to town for 3 games. Welcome, K-Red. Welcome, Molly and Barkley's Life. Welcome, everybody else in the chat. You can watch along with us live for the next hour, and if you don't have the opportunity to watch us live, that's okay. You can catch us on replay on YouTube or any of our streaming services, and of course, you can catch the audio-only podcast on any podcast platforms that you use. Spotify, Apple Music, one of the weird ones that nobody knows about. I kid, of course. But any of your audio listening platforms you can get into. Let's dive into the series that was against the Colorado Rockies before we talk about the upcoming series against the LA Dodgers. Phillies sweep the Rockies and improved to 5-1 on the season. Their second consecutive series victory, their first series sweep of the year. And I think the overarching story yesterday was Taijuan Walker. For the expectations for Taijuan Walker heading into the season were just about zero. I think for a lot of us, for me, probably for you, for everybody that I've spoken to, Taijuan Walker felt like it was a contract that the Phillies were saddled with because of an overpay when they signed him. And they had 2 years left on the contract, and the likelihood was he was going to make the team out of spring training because of the money and because of the fact that it didn't seem like there was a ton of a big trade market for him at the time. And then Matt Strahm gets injured, and while he makes the opening day roster, there were concerns that he maybe wouldn't. And then Ranger Suarez gets injured, and he doesn't make the opening day roster, and the likelihood became almost a certainty that Taijuan Walker was going to make the opening day roster. And not just make the opening day roster, but make a couple of starts in Ranger Suarez's stead. Now, the numbers last year were not good. A 3-7 record with a 7.10 ERA. The velocity was down. The control was down. He had given up a ton of home runs. He was giving up a lot of hard contact. And the Taijuan Walker that we saw last year just really wasn't very good. And the numbers indicated that. And so the conversation surrounding Taijuan Walker all offseason was, would he be on the roster? Would he not only be on the roster, but would he get starts? And as we said, as the spring training unfolded, the answer became more and more clear that the answer to that question was going to be yes. And by the way, welcome into the PHOI Phillies podcast. It is presented to us by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Taijuan Walker was going to make this team, and he made his first start yesterday against the Colorado Rockies. And I have to tip my cap, and that's why the headline today was tip of the cap to Taijuan Walker. He was excellent. 6 shutout innings in the win against the Colorado Rockies. Andrew, do you know how many days it's been since Taijuan Walker won a baseball game at the major league level?
Oh, man. 500 days? 600 days?
Not quite that long, but it's pretty darn long. Almost a year. 328 days since Taijuan Walker's last win, which came on May 11th of 2024.
Wow.
328 days it had been. And he was excellent yesterday. He scattered 3 hits. He gave up just 1 walk. He struck out 4. Now, he did give up some hard contact yesterday. 5 of the swings that were put into play were over 99 miles an hour or more off the exit velocity, but only 2 of them resulted in hits. The Mickey Moniak triple and the Ryan McMahon single. Three of them did reach base because I believe there was an error involved as well. But he was able to limit any kind of damage that he had. And to me, the most important thing was twofold. The first was the velocity. The velocity was up yesterday across the board. His sinker touched 94. I think it was 93.9 was his hardest thrown sinker. And he sat about 92 on that sinker and on his four-seam fastball that he threw a little bit, but he sat on the sinker that he used the most as his fastball at 92. The splitter sat about 87 or 88, and the velocity across the board was up for most of the day. And when the velocity is up across the board, it allows him to throw more of his pitches. It allows him to throw specifically the splitter as an out pitch. And we'll get to that in just a second. But outside of the velocity, to me, the most important thing that Taijuan Walker did yesterday was get ahead in counts, was throw strikes, was put himself in position to win at bats. Yesterday, he only had 4 at bats and 5 plate appearances because he did have the one error. But he had 4 at bats yesterday that he fell behind in the count 1-0. You can compare that to 16 at bats, 17 plate appearances in total, in which he was either even in the count at some point or was ahead in the count, meaning he got ahead 0-1. The Rockies only had 3 at bats all game long, in which they were 1-0. And let me correct that stat there. There were 4 at bats all game long that they were ahead in the count at any point. They had 3 at bats when they were ahead 1-0. They had 12 at bats where they started 0-1. So Taijuan Walker was pounding the strike zone early and getting ahead in counts. And the Rockies had 5 at bats in which they went first pitch digging. They went 0 for 5 in those 5 at bats that they swung at the first pitch. So even if you add that to the fold, there were 17 at bats yesterday where the Rockies either swung at the first pitch or started 0-1. That's incredible for a guy whose stuff has diminished over the years. That is how you have sustained success as a pitcher whose stuff is starting to diminish and really, quite frankly, has diminished over the course of his career. There was a point in time where Taijuan Walker's fastball sat 94, 95, and he was able to touch 96. There was also a point in time where his best pitch was his splitter. When he was in Arizona, when he was in Seattle, even his first year or two in New York, that was his best pitch. It was his out pitch. It was his strikeout pitch. It was his everything pitch. Taijuan Walker is unable to throw his splitter when he's not ahead in counts. And the reason is because more times than not, Taijuan Walker throws his splitter for a swing and miss pitch. He throws it as a pitch that he wants to get topped contact on. He throws it as a pitch that he wants to get ground ball contact on. And so he's going to throw it down in the zone and out of the zone. When you're ahead 0-1, when you're ahead 1-2, you can throw that pitch because guys are going to go after it. You can even throw it in the first pitch of the at-bat if you want to get an early diving pitch out over the plate, especially when he's going to throw it to left-handed hitters, which he did pretty exclusively yesterday. But when you fall behind in the count, that splitter becomes significantly less effective. And the reason is, again, because he doesn't throw it for strikes a ton. He throws it down in the zone and under and below the zone. He wants to get dives. He wants to get swing and miss. He wants to get ground balls. And when hitters are up in the count 1-0, 2-1, 3-1, 2-0, whatever the case may be, they're just going to spit on that pitch because they don't need to go after it. They'll recognize it out of hand and they'll say, I'm not going to chase this pitch. Give me something up in the zone. Give me fastball 91. Give me sinker 91. Give me slider at 86 that you had to hang as a get-me-over slider, and that's when Taijuan Walker falls into trouble. And so when he's able to get ahead in the count, like he did on Monday, that's when he is able to have success. Does this carry over for the next 2 games, the next 4 games, however long Taijuan Walker pitches? I don't know the answer to that question. And I would bet you, based on the numbers that we saw last year, based on the fact that he wasn't particularly good last year, I don't know if the answer to that question is yes. It might be no. He might get rocked in his next start. But for one start, I saw glimpses of a guy that I used to see in like 2017. I saw glimpses of a guy who was confident on the mound. And that's the thing I think was the most important to him yesterday, was a regain of confidence. Even if it was for 5 days, was a regain of confidence. I'm sure you've heard the story by now or read the story about how his family was in attendance, how his mom was really emotional over the frequency in which he was getting booed by the Phillies fans. And listen, I can't fault you for booing the guy. He wasn't good last year. He really, really struggled. He's not been good in his 2 seasons as a Phillies pitcher. But the human aspect to it does come into play. And I think there was, you heard the story about how his mom was really emotional in the stands, and he was emotional about it. And so for him to go out and pitch the way that he did is a confidence builder for a guy that hasn't had a lot of confidence over the last 2 years because of the fact that he just didn't have major league stuff. He was leaving a lot of pitches out over the plate. He was getting hit hard. He gave up a ton of home runs. He gave up a ton of extra base hits. And I think, again, due in part to the fact that he wasn't throwing enough strike one. I'm not so sure how this season unfolds for him. I'm not sure how this season ends for Taijuan Walker, and does it end with him being a Philly? But the best thing that could possibly happen for the Phillies is that Taijuan Walker pitches well early in the season, because he is going to get called upon, whether it's now to replace Ranger Suarez, whether another injury to the starting rotation maybe unfolds as the season progresses, whether it's in a mop-up role or multi-inning role out of the bullpen. The Phillies will rely on Taijuan Walker to some extent, at least in the beginning of the season. And the best thing that could happen for this guy, and the best thing that could happen for the Phillies, is for him to pitch well. And whether that means he remains with the team as a sixth starter, maybe they go to a six-man rotation, maybe they feel comfortable enough that Ranger Suarez could pitch out of the bullpen, or whatever the case may be. And the best scenario is that he pitches well enough to be traded at the trade deadline when Andrew Painter makes his debut, or around that time. That's the best case scenario. But that only happens if he continues to pitch well. And yesterday was a really good start in the right direction. Yes, he faced a bad offense. Yes, the Rockies are not a very good team. And who knows what's going to happen when he faces the Braves, who, yes, have started 0-7 and have not hit the ball particularly well, but who knows over the course of the next week how they fare. But for one day and for one start, Taijuan Walker was able to regain confidence. And that's an important piece for any baseball player. It's an important piece for any human being at their job. One more thing about yesterday's game, because I know we spent a lot of time on Taijuan Walker. I do want to just talk about the pitch sequencing that I thought he did a really nice job on. I thought he mixed speeds really well. He threw 5 of his 6 pitches for 10 or more times. Now, the four-seam fastball was the least used pitch. I think he used it 7 or 8 times throughout the day, but he threw 5 of his 6 pitches at least 10 times. He threw the slider exclusively to righties. He threw it 17 times, and he threw the splitter and the curveball mostly to left-handed hitters. He used the splitter 13 times, and again, used it effectively off of the fastball, off of the sinker, off of the slider that he was able to throw early in the count for strikes. And so if he's able to pair all of those things, that's how you got a really good 6 innings out of Taijuan Walker. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, and it continues to be a trend, is that the Phillies have struggled against starting pitching. Antonio Senzatella started yesterday's game. I believe he got into the 6th. Let me double check that just for clarity's sake. Yeah, he got into the 6th. Now, he gave up 10 hits. The Phillies got to him for 10 hits. It was 10 of their 11 hits, but they didn't score any earned runs. And he went 5 1/3 innings. He struck out 3. And now the Phillies, over the first 6 games, have scored 5 earned runs against starting pitching over the course of 35 1/3 innings pitched. That is a 1.27 ERA over the first 6 starts. And the reason that I bring that up, and we're going to talk more about this when we preview the Dodgers series, that can't happen against a team like the Dodgers because they have a much better bullpen than the 2 teams that you faced in the first 2 series. So we'll talk about that as the show unfolds. Coming up on the other side, we're going to be joined by one of our favorite people here at PHLY as we have a conversation about all things Philly sports. Well, not all things Philly sports, about all things Phillies throughout the first week, and we'll preview the Dodgers series a little bit further. We'll do that right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast, brought to you by Bet365 right after this. Let me tell you about our friends over at Monarch Money, because listen, tracking your money is a difficult endeavor. Whether it's you're still struggling to get back from paying your holiday bills, or maybe you've got student loans or a mortgage or rent, tracking your money and staying on top of your finances is a difficult task for anybody. And that's where Monarch Money comes into play. They act like your personal CFO. They give you full visibility and control so you can stop just earning and start growing. And it's more than just your average budgeting app. Monarch is a complete financial command center that allows you to track all of your accounts, all of your investments, and all of your goals. So don't just manage your money. Start building wealth with 50% off of your first year for all of your listeners. And I'll tell you more about that in just a second. Why do I track my money? Well, first of all, I'd like to know how much I have, and I am a little bit cognizant of how much I spend compared to how much I save. But the reason that I track my money is because I have a ton of bills to pay, whether it's my college student loans, my portion of rent, our savings account in which we're trying to continue to grow, not just to buy a home, but to save for my son's college future and his bills when he gets to be into his teenage years, and we need to start thinking about college and the future for him. And so there's a reason why I save and why I track my money, and it's about growth, it's about development, and it's about right now and the future. So when you take a look at Monarch Money, they are the ultimate tool to do everything that you need to do. They were named the Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025, and it is a financial tool that you will love. So get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money, and use the code PHLY at monarchmoney.com for half off your first year. That's 50% off an entire year at monarchmoney.com with the promo code PHLY. And Johnny Marks has been telling you for over a year now about our friends over at GLAT Hair Restoration, because with GLAT Hair, it's not just about restoration, it is about innovation as well. So maybe you don't need hair restoration just yet, but the team at GLAT is going to go through the process with you. And if you do need it, well, they'll set that up for you. But if you don't need it, they're going to go through a ton of different non-invasive actions for you before you get to that point, whether it is TED treatments, stem cell, whatever the case may be. GLAT is there for you every step of the way with a personalized experience. You're not just going to walk into an office and feel like you're another number, feel like you're another patient. And instead, they're going to treat you like you with a personalized meeting with their incredible experts over at GLAT Hair Restoration. It is not only just the meetings, but they're going to feel like you're having a conversation with an old friend. And they'll have follow-up care as well. And whether that might be a non-invasive treatment or it is hair restoration surgery, they are going to give you follow-up care for every step of the process. GLAT Hair can help you keep the hair you already have or help you bring back what you've already lost. So if you would like more information and are ready to defend your hairline today, visit GLATHairMM.com, or you can call or text 610-980-4000 to get started. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. And now we are joined, of course, as I mentioned, with an old friend of the program, Jamie Lynch. All right, welcome back into the PHLY Phillies podcast, and I'm joined by our friend, Jamie Lynch.
Hi.
Jamie, you are the man of the people. You were a man of the people at the tailgates on Monday for the home opener. How was your home opener experience, first of all?
It was great. There's no way to tell this story without sounding a little bit like a jerk.
It's all right. I give you permission to be a jerk.
But my wife, because it was a Philadelphia public school holiday, had off.
Oh, nice.
We, for a long time, were doing there was some hooking involved. Would always make it a tradition to go to the home opener, especially Sans children when we lived in South Philly.
Of course.
Super easy.
So it's not feeling so good today, boss.
Yeah. So it was always like one of our favorite traditions. And this year it fell on a holiday, so she just naturally had off. And I had tickets upstairs, which I paid face value for.
Okay.
And the morning of the game, my buddy, who's good friends with Larry Christensen, Philly's legend, said, "Hey,
this is the jerk part, right?"
Yeah, this is the jerk part. He was like, "Hey, I got two seats in the Diamond Club today next to LC.
Yes.
You want them?" And I was like, "Yeah,
absolutely."
And we were going with our head of production, Julia, because her and my wife are best friends.
Sure.
And I was like, "Addie, we have to ditch Julia if we do this." And she said, "If anybody will understand, Julia will understand."
For those that don't know, Julia is she's a diehard Philadelphia sports fan.
Phillies
but
number one.
Phillies, it's like she is a diehard through and through. I remember watching postseason games with our show, and Julia was here. And the nervous pacing, biting of the fingernails, like, it's real. She's a diehard fan, but 100%. If you would have said that to me, I'd have been like, Jamie, I'd be
See you
mad
later.
at you if you don't
Yeah.
go.
So I got to sit, I think LC seats or right in the middle behind home plate.
Sure.
Awesome experience.
So that's those seats.
It's
I've
ridiculous.
sat there precisely one time in my life, and I felt like I was royalty.
Yeah, it's
Because they
unreal.
come to you, they like bring you drinks
Yeah,
and,
we had
and
a waiter
whatnot.
service.
But the thing that stands out to me the most in those seats, like
Seeing
for the
pitching-
game,
the pitcher's movement.
oh my God, that's
time
exactly right.
The first time we sat down there was a Zach Wheeler start, and my wife looked at me and was like, "How does?" Because you could like see the ball
Yep.
with the like late takeoff approaching the plate. The views are just unbelievable. And she looked at me and was like, "How does anybody hit that?" I was like, "I have no idea."
You don't. And that's the thing is like, I have this conversation a million times. Baseball is not inherently the hardest sport to play in terms of physicality.
Sure.
But hitting a baseball is the hardest thing in all sports.
Absolutely. And like when you look at Christopher Sanchez or a Paul Skeens, adding stuff to their arsenal. When Christopher Sanchez is hitting 99 at one point and then
Right.
dials it back with a 91-mile-an-hour changeup, that's one of the filthiest pitches in baseball. Like how it looks the same coming out of his hand. How do you do that?
When they say pull the string on a changeup,
Yeah.
it literally feels like they have it on a yo-yo string and they yank it back.
It's so cool sitting down there because you gain a new appreciation of the pitchers.
Oh, no doubt. So speaking of pitchers, Phil's 5-1. A lot on the strength of the starting rotation. I mean, you've gotten now in 6 starts, 5 really, really good starts.
Yeah.
Including yesterday.
Taijuan
Walker was tremendous yesterday. I mean, I talked about it earlier today. Like, all I did was tip of the cap because that guy faced a lot of scrutiny from me, from fans. I'm sure you probably have said a word or two about Taijuan Walker.
I was shocked he was on this opening day roster. When we did the show at the end of the year last year, Tyler, I was like, no way he's here.
Yeah, and injuries played a part, right?
Sure.
Ranger Suarez not being available played a part.
But I still think he's the middle long man. I still think
he
they were
is.
going to keep him.
Yeah, and so, the story about how his mom was in attendance and she was an emotional like roller coaster, and she's heard the boos and the comments, and so has Taijuan Walker. And the one thing I think we've always given Taijuan Walker credit for is being a pro.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because
absolutely.
I go back to the day late in the season last year, and he's getting shelled. And the Phillies are short-staffed. I think they had used a bunch of guys the day before, and their pitching staff just didn't have a lot of guys available. And he was getting crushed, and it was like the 4th inning. And from what the report said was Taijuan Walker went to Rob Thompson and said, "I'll keep going."
Yeah, it got so bad that on this show it wasn't even like fire, like piss and vinegar anger.
Sure.
It was just like, I feel bad for him. It got to the point because he was being such a pro, because he was going out there and taking his lumps and taking the boos and dealing with a world of, man, I might not have that splitter
I may
anymore.
not be a major league pitcher
Yeah,
anymore.
I might not be that guy I once thought I was anymore. And the mental kind of turmoil he was going through, it got so bad we were at the point where it was like, man, I just feel bad for Taijuan.
Yeah, and I think
Like,
it
was empathetic.
there was a point where it turned and you went, this is no longer on the player because the player's skill set is what it is.
Yeah,
and
like
he's
he's clearly either injured or lost something.
right. And so at some point you just turn to the manager and the team and say, what's the next step? Because this isn't on the player anymore. Because if you have a couple bad outings in a row and you're Zach Wheeler, it's like, okay, what's the issue?
Sure.
Are you hurt? Are you tipping pitches? Are you not pulling down like the way you did? It becomes a cause for concern if it's somebody who has had a long history of success. Last year was, injury, comes back from injury, just didn't really have it. And at some point you just go, all right,
Can
Rob,
you throw something else out
this
there?
is on you. Like, but the problem was, and we noted this a lot last season. I talked about it in the offseason. The 5th starter spot when they filled in for Ranger Suarez, when Spencer Turnbull went down for the year, the 5th starter spot, they didn't get much from anybody. Like Tyler Phillips had the complete game shutout against Cleveland. Otherwise, he was bad. Tyler Gilbert wasn't very good. Michael Mercado wasn't very good. Like, they had a couple of bullpen games, and I remember the one bullpen game right before the All-Star break where they faced the A's.
Yeah.
And the A's just crushed them. Like, there was no answer. And so when you involve the money and you involve the 2 years left on the contract and the fact that probably nobody is going to go and outwardly try to acquire Taijuan Walker.
No.
The likelihood was you're just going to have to take your lumps. And so a tip of the cap to him, because he went 6 shutout innings yesterday, and he was really good.
Yeah, really good. And really good piece by Jim Salisbury on allphly.com, where you mentioned that he talks about his mother being there and all that. But Taijuan, again, being the professional that he is, gives a shout-out to Caleb Cotham and the pitching staff for working with him and giving him that offseason regimen, which he thinks is paying dividends now. He says he feels good. His velocity's up a tick. Maybe his mechanics and all that are back to a better form. Maybe he just got stronger in the offseason. But Taijuan gave Caleb Cotham a big shout-out there. And hopefully this is something he can sustain, because when you were talking there, it's like a kind of a natural segue into why the Phillies were third in the division in kind of odds. I always thought that was way off. I don't know. I talked on Anthony's show a couple weeks ago. I was like, I love the Phillies' odds to win the division because what you were talking about there, the end of last year, they hit a skid offensively, but they were, every fifth day was like, hey, come and take a W if you got it in you, because of all those guys they ran through. Adding Jesus Luzardo, who's now kicking off the Dodgers series, like eventually Ranger will be back and Taijuan will be your middleman. Shoring up that fifth spot and having Taijuan as a, better than last year middleman.
It's a swing guy.
Yeah, swing guy. That is like a world of difference from last year.
Yeah, and listen, do I expect Taijuan Walker to go out next start and go 6 shutout innings again? Probably not. I mean,
but if he can give you 5 innings every start.
So John Marks asked me a question today, and I didn't even let him finish because the answer was yes. And I'll see how far you get in this question. And he said if he makes X amount of starts, whether it's filling in for Ranger or filling in if somebody else were to get hurt throughout the season, if he makes X amount of starts and he posts a 4.5 ERA, and that's where I stopped him right there. I said sold. If he posts a 4.5 ERA,
that's technically almost a quality start.
Yeah, right. Because he goes, if it's 6 innings and 3 earned runs, I said that's a quality start.
Yeah.
Now, I don't buy the quality start because of that 4.5 number. Yeah. But if your 5, 6, 7 guy gives you a 4.5 throughout the course of a season,
yeah, I'm in.
I'm sold right now.
And Jesus Luzardo should give you even better than that.
Right. And so
you have. That's why I thought it was silly that they were third in terms of odds, because not only do you have a top 5 rotation in baseball, and one of those other number 1 or number 2 rotations is coming in town this weekend. It's a steel on steel pitching weekend ahead. It's going to be awesome. But this rotation is filthy. We started talking about, it's 5 of 6 starts. That's not a fluke, and that's going to continue to be that way for a long time. Just that damn RAV4.
So let's talk about that pitching matchup, because the Dodgers do come into town. Before we do that, I want to ask you this. What happens first? Dodgers lose or Braves win?
Braves are back home versus...
Tonight they got the Marlins.
And the Dodgers got the Phils. Probably same start times.
I would imagine. The Braves usually start a little bit later because apparently it's impossible to get into Truist Park. Yeah, 7:15 start time.
Okay, 7. So technically, if the Phils were to win, that would happen first.
Likely, yeah.
So tonight is Luzardo versus Yamamoto.
It's a good one.
That is good. I will go with... I'm going to go with the Phils win tonight.
Okay.
So I think the Dodgers lose before the Braves win.
I said I think the Phillies are going to take 1 of 3 in this series. And it's not because of anything other than... The Dodgers are winning games every way you possibly can win. They're walking off. They're coming from behind.
The other night.
Their pitching's excellent.
Freddie Freeman to the IL, though.
Yeah, which is certainly a downturn for them, because you and I have gushed over Freddie Freeman over the years.
So good.
All he does is hit doubles. All right, so pitching matchups this weekend is... I
think Luzardo's going to get a little CBP juice in those veins tonight. Yeah,
I think Luzardo having a... I called it like a soft landing for Luzardo in his first start. Coming back from the injury, having the opportunity to go up against the Nationals, who I have said on the show plenty, I think that they're a scrappy bunch and they're getting better.
Yeah.
They're not going to be ready to be on the level of Phillies, Dodgers, Braves type. And obviously the Braves are 0-7.
And Abrams and Cruz.
It's a good core.
You have a good young core.
But I think it's a good landing spot compared to saying I've got to go up against in my first start the Dodgers. Yeah. Or... I know the Braves are 0-7, but I still think they're going to be better than 0-7 at some point.
Yeah, this could be some recency bias on my part, giving Luzardo a little too much love. But you've heard Max. I don't know if you heard Max Kepler's quote the other night, but he's like, man, I love playing here. He's like, this stadium really gives you that extra bit of like juice and adrenaline, and it really gets you kind of amped up. And we've heard this countless times throughout the years for people's first experiences at Citizens Bank Park. So hopefully Luzardo harnesses that in a positive way and not like
for sure. There might be some, early season
jitters.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think he's going to be fired up. I would bet he's throwing an extra mile an hour on top of his.
Now, the only thing I don't want to see, because I think you're right, the only thing I don't want to see is overthrowing.
Sure.
Because you get guys that are amped up and then, hey, let me throw 98 on my first pitch.
You saw,
and it's out and away.
You saw a little bit of that with Alvarado yesterday as he gave you the scaries in the ninth.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
he was throwing gas, but
that's going to be Alvarado throughout the year. Like
he wasn't.
His first two appearances, he was unhittable. And so if I get 2 out of 3 appearances from Alvarado where he's unhittable, and the third one we're walking the tightrope, I think I can live with that.
By the way, Romano, real quick, which is going to take me. It's going to take me a hard time.
I have
retrain.
forced myself to do it.
My man looks like an extra out of Boogie Nights, doesn't he?
He's an interesting guy, isn't it?
He's got quite the look on the mound.
And he's one of those dudes who I know it's not illegal, but it feels like he balks every time because he does the set and then kind of the rock like shimmy and then resets, and I'm like, that's a balk. What are you doing? That's a balk. And I know it's not, but all right, so let's talk about this pitching matchup because it's Yamamoto and Luzardo tonight. Tomorrow is Sasaki and Nola.
Sasaki's been struggling, my man. Did you see my man? He was crying
in the dugout.
And, the reports of him in the offseason was a little intimidated by the big market situation, ends up going, obviously, to a big market.
The conversation was like, could he end up in a Cincinnati or Detroit, because it was a minor league deal, right? Because they had a cap on how much they could spend.
And then you see him crying. It's like, oh man, maybe that was a concern.
Sure. And then Sunday is Glasnow and Sanchez, and
that's gonna be awesome.
I want to ask you this: is Saturday's matchup? Are they right now the two? I don't want to say worst because they are 2 good start, and like you said, Sasaki's gotten hit around a little bit. Saturday's matchup, when you go Sasaki Nola, you go good matchup. But of the 3, it might be the worst, which is crazy.
Maybe the least exciting.
Maybe that's the right way to say
because
it. Shouldn't say worst. It's still 2 good
Nola's
arms.
better than Luzardo, but it's Phillies fans' first chance to see Luzardo at home. So I think there's a little extra juice for that one. Nola's like old habit at this point. Just get out of the 4th inning this weekend, please.
All right, last thing for you.
And by the way, Apple TV broadcast tonight.
So
primo.
You're going to get the old man yells at clouds.
Oh, absolutely. My father-in-law is going to call me at...
How do I get the game?
6:30 or whatever and be like,
well, and that,
I don't see it on NBC.
That's the problem, Jamie. It's not 1:30 in the afternoon. It's 6:42.
Is that what it is? It's 6:45?
6:45 start, yeah. So it's like 6:42. Hey, where's the game? You're asking now? Why are we just asking now?
But I do love the quality of the broadcast and the stats. And
I love the advance. I love the nerd stats
and the predictive chance he gets a hit in this situation.
Totally agree.
And the cameras are so nice and clean. It's a pretty looking broadcast.
There's really no way to split up a pre-recorded video. So we'll just be honest because it was always funny, Andrew, when we did radio. You'd be like, oh, you got to make it sound like it's live, even if it's pre-recorded. And it's like, dude, I just sent it from myself to myself. It's clearly not live.
Yeah.
But there's no good way to make a pre-recorded video. So we're going to finish the conversation with Jamie in just a little bit. Jamie and I sat down about 10 o'clock this morning to have that conversation. So we'll do that in just a little bit. But before we do that, I do want to pause and tell you about some of our friends here at PHLY. Let's tell you about our presenting sponsor and one of our great sponsors here. It is our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary with Bet365 because they live stream 780,000 events each and every year, and 90 million users get access to those games. And the reason that they live stream that many events is because they are the pioneers of live in-game betting. Lines change constantly throughout the day. Let's take yesterday's game, for example. Well, your hometown baseball team was down 1-0 early in the game or even midway through the game, and you had an opportunity to potentially get some better odds because they ended up winning the game 3-1, or excuse me, that was 2 nights ago. I apologize. They were down 1-0. They were leading 3-0 in yesterday's game, but 2 nights ago they were down 1-0. The point is, you can jump on live lines all of the time as they change and get better odds if your team is maybe trailing later in the game, but you feel comfortable that they're going to get after a bad bullpen and win. You can get in on that action and do it live throughout the game. But one of the other great options for Bet365 is the early payout method. I know the NHL and NBA seasons, at least locally, are about to come to an end, and maybe for the NBA's sake, mercifully about to come to an end. But you can get in on all the action with the early payouts. If your NBA team goes up by 20 at any point, you get an instant winner on all of your straight bets and any parlay selections that get marked as a winner. The same thing for the NHL. If your team's up by 3 goals or more at any point, you can do the same and get marked as a winner. You don't have to sweat a comeback late in the game. And extended. This offer's been extended at least until the end of today. All new customers can get up to $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Win or lose, sign up. Use the promo code the promo code PHLY365 and deposit $10 and place just a bet for $5, and you get $150 back in bonus bets whether your bet wins or loses. You can use that bonus bet money on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and so much more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. And while we're at it, let me tell you about our friends over at Game Time. I used the Game Time app yesterday to secure my tickets at Citizens Bank Park. We went down as a family and were able to get some incredible tickets at a really good price because we were able to use Game Time to get us the best deal possible on our tickets. But it's not just about getting great deals. Game Time has the best seat view action in the game. So if you're not sure where you're going to buy tickets and you want to see exactly where your view to the game or the comedy event or the concert or the theater event, whatever it might be, if you want to see your view from your seat, the Game Time app has the best 3D view of your seats to the field or to the rink or to the ice or the stage or whatever it may be. You're never going to be left wondering, where do I think my seats are going to be when you show up to the venue? You're going to know exactly where they are with the incredible seat view, panoramic view that you're going to get before you buy. They also offer the lowest price guarantee. If you don't get that lowest price guarantee, if you find prices better elsewhere, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. They also offer you incredible ticket coverage, so your ticket is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. They understand that things happen, whether it be a cancellation of the event itself, or maybe you fall on some hard times and you have they have job loss prevention, or whatever the case may be. They're going to help you figure out the best way for you to get your tickets and enjoy the event, or figure out a way to get your money back. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use the code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Welcome back into the PHLY Phillies podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365, where it is never ordinary at Bet365. All right, let's continue our conversation with our buddy Jamie Lynch. We sat down a little bit earlier today to chat more about this series coming up against the LA Dodgers and to talk a little bit more Phils in as a whole. So here's part 2 of our conversation with my buddy Jamie Lynch. All right, 2 more guys I want to talk about because let's call it for what it is. The Phillies have struggled against starting pitching this year.
Sure. They're
but
rocking bullpens.
They've rocked 2 bad bullpens, so we'll see what happens this weekend. But 2 guys I want to talk about. The first is a guy who we expected to be good, is Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah. He's going to hit 50 home runs this year.
Absolutely tattooing the baseball to start the
Contract year, 50 home runs incoming. Book it.
So the conversation the whole time was, does he lead off? Does he hit 4th? And it seems like for now, when he and Trey Turner are both in the lineup, Turner's going to lead off against lefties. Schwarber's going to lead off against righties. And so far, it really doesn't matter where Schwarber hits. He's just going to hit the baseball.
Yeah, I don't think it matters at all with Schwarber. I do like what I'm seeing out of Turner in the leadoff spot, though. We don't have this conversation anymore, Tyler.
We don't have to anymore.
Because, yeah, we retired it 2.5 years ago. But now that it's back, I guess we have to address it. I think it was Mike Sealski on Anthony said when we were talking about the roster, 3 weeks ago, he was like, I like Turner in the leadoff spot. I was like, me too, Mike. Mm-hmm. He said because it just mentally resets him. Like, he kind of became a product of the lineup, meaning he was probably swinging out of his shoes at times when he shouldn't have been. Like, he kind of fell into that heart of the order where it was like Mimbo bash baseball. And Turner's one of those guys like a Bohm where it's like, all right, you have the capability of hitting 24 home runs, but we kind of need you to spray the gaps, go with the pitches, work some good at-bats, use all the field, every cliche you want to use. And I think getting him out of that heart of the order just kind of like mentally zaps him back into a different approach at the plate.
It's an interesting way to approach it, and I think there is a different mental approach
Absolutely.
to every spot in the lineup, unless your name is Nick Castellanos.
Yeah,
But I think it's an interesting way to approach it because the last 2 seasons, Trey Turner's chase rates were the worst of his career.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years that he was a Philly. And I think especially you saw it late in the second half of the season last year, his chase rate skyrocketed, and he was swinging at a lot of stuff down and away. And it was just like, all right, I'm going to pepper you with breaking ball, especially with righties. I'm just going to pepper you, sliders away, and lefties will go change up down and away, right? And that to me is the most important aspect of his game, no matter where he hits in the lineup, is quality of at bat is so important because you have a lot of free swingers in this lineup. I need Trey Turner. I need Alec Bohm. And then the last guy we're going to talk about in a little bit that I think's done a really good job of it is I need Max Kepler to see a lot of pitches.
The German.
Because those 3 guys, to me, are your guys that have the ability to walk or to draw out counts, to extended bats, and that runs pitch counts up. And if you're struggling against starting pitching the way that they have to start the year, that's how you get into a bullpen. That's how you tax a starter. And Turner, to me, no matter where he hits in the lineup, that mental approach that you talked about, that Jim wrote about in the offseason, I just think needed to be cleaned up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when I think of Trey Turner, and look, Trey Turner is a fascinating like case study in Major League Baseball because for 3 months of the nearly 6-month season, he looks like an MVP candidate.
Yeah.
And then for 2 months, he'll be, at a valley where you're like, oh man, do we put this guy down in the 8-hole?
Well, and the funny thing is, if you stripped away the nameplate on the back of the jersey and just looked at the back of the baseball card, Trey Turner had a pretty good year last year. He hit like 295. He hit 20-some-odd home runs like you brought up. He was an all-star. Yeah. And a lot of that was due to the fact that he was so good out of the gate.
Prior to the injury, he was like perhaps your NL MVP.
Sure. And so maybe it's a little misleading, but the moment you put the name and the contract, fair or unfair, you put those 2 together, it's like
fair
saps
because
some of that conversation.
And we know what they're paid. And
sure.
You can't escape that.
And I know you guys talked about that on the Eagles show yesterday with Howie Roseman's contracts, right? With like, should players' contracts be public information?
Yeah, I just would like to know.
And it's maybe not necessarily with baseball, but with every other sport, it's a salary cap thing.
Sure.
Teams, fans want to know how much of the salary cap it impacts. But I think no matter where he hits in the lineup, to me, that mental fortitude, I think, changes the entire complexity of his game.
Yeah, and it's way too small of a sample size to say this definitively, but in my mind's eye, when I think of Trey Turner last year, it's a lot of back in the stance, back on the back foot, launch angle. When I see him at the leadoff spot this year, he seems to be more level and just like attacking and hitting line drives. Like, I think he got home run happy last year. And while, you want 24 home runs from Trey Turner, that'd be great. You also want that man, to drive the ball and to get on base and to use his speed. I like what I'm seeing from the leadoff spot. I wish they would stick with it a little bit more.
I don't think
me.
It's not going to happen.
I know. I've kind of accepted it. But sometimes I think there's too much put into righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty. Like sometimes you just need your good ball players to be good ball players. You know what I mean?
Which is certainly fair. And in a moment's sample size or a week sample size, I can agree with you. Over the course of a season, I think you are playing matchups because they're favorable.
Sure.
All right, the other guy that I wanted to talk to you about was Max Kepler.
The German.
Because you and I talked about him a lot in the offseason because this outfield free agency class was dreadful.
Weak.
Outside of Soto.
Good thing we didn't get Jurickson Profar, huh?
Well, and that was a guy we talked about a lot. Popped for
80
PEDs.
games right off the bat.
But Kepler was a guy that you and I both immediately, when we said who could be an under-the-radar signing for the Phillies, you and I both went, Max Kepler. Because the pop's been there in the past. Last year was a down year because 2 separate injuries really plagued him and kind of sapped him of his power. And so far he's got 5 hits and 18 at bats. He's hitting 278. But his OBP is over 400. He's in the top 5 percentile across baseball and walk percentage at 18.2%. And he's seen 86 pitches in his 22 plate appearances, which is just shy of 4 pitches in at bat. And
That's great.
To me, he's an important piece towards the middle or bottom of the order.
He's already gotten moved up. Rob has shown you that he believes.
Yeah, and I think he should, because his at-bats have been really good so far. Now, he grounded into a double play with what was the bases loaded, I think it was yesterday, and unfortunate, but listen, you're going to hit into double plays over the course of the season. But I think his spray charts looked good for 2025. You know, his home run went opposite field. Listen, it's 5 hits, but he's taken 4 of them to the opposite field. He's willing to use the whole field. He's not chasing. He's seen a good bit of pitches. And as I said, he's in the 92nd percentile in walk rate through the first week of the season. I don't know what he's going to be through 162 games where he probably plays 135.
I mean, if he's healthy, he probably plays close to 140.
140?
Yeah.
But early returns suggest no matter what, you were able to sign a professional hitter.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that was sorely needed from the left field spot.
Absolutely. He looks great. As we talked about in the offseason, the only thing with him is health. And if you can keep him healthy, this could be a gem. I took him late in one of my fantasy drafts because I was like, well, let's just see.
Take a flyer.
Yeah, he's worth it. And much like Taijuan gave Caleb Cotham credit, Kepler, as soon as he got in the hands of Kevin Long and this hitting staff, was very complimentary towards them, too. So I know a lot of Phillies faithful and fans wanted, maybe not Cotham, but definitely Kevin Long gone last year. Early returns so far are pretty solid from Max Kepler. The German. And most importantly, perhaps, Tyler, is my daughter, Skylar. I think he is...
New favorite player?
He is...
Nice.
So I put this in our Discord yesterday. Her Mount Rushmore right now, Trey Turner's number 1.
Sure. She's been a big Trey Turner fan.
Chris Sanchez, number 2.
Nice.
She's a big fan of Sanchi. Wheeler, number 3.
Makes sense.
And I think because my wife and her think he's cute, the German has slid in Skylar's 4th spot on the Mount Rushmore of current Phillies.
Hey, you know what? I will say this. Of that group of 4, I mean, she's picked some really good players. She
was on Sanchez early. She was on him last year.
She knows ball.
Yeah, she does know ball.
Well, I remember there was a time last year where we would do some pregame shows and she would be spot on with her prediction. You'd go, hey, how you feeling about today's game? And she'd go, not feeling it today. And they would lose.
It was really funny the other day. She was kind of like goading me and my wife. She's like, we were watching the game and she was like, who are these guys? Are they all new? And we were like, no, and then she laid out the whole
ran out the whole lineup.
Yeah. We're like, stop. You know these guys.
As a dad who is clearly doing an awesome job raising his kids to be Phillies fans.
Softball opening day parade on Saturday.
Love that.
Too. Yeah, big baseball week.
So I said this on John's show. We took our 5-month-old to his first game yesterday.
Did you get your certificate?
We got the certificate.
All
right. We made it. Well, so we got in at the bottom of the first because I was running from here. I knew we weren't going to make it, but we got through the whole game.
Nice.
We were able to stay the whole game. How many innings we watched in the seat? Was probably about 4.
You got to walk.
We walked the concourse. Obviously had to take care of him a little bit, feed him, change him, all that kind of stuff.
The Philly staff, by the way,
they were so accommodating.
Aren't they awesome?
So accommodating
with kids, and when we took Skylar as an infant down, they were like, "Can we take you to a breastfeeding room?
Yep.
Can we take you into air conditioning? Would you like to move to a seat in the shade if the baby gets too hot?"
Sure.
Awesome staff down there.
We, maybe because it was early in the season, maybe it was a 1:00 game, maybe because Taijuan Walker was pitching.
As a kid, father and mother of fairly young children, you find that you tend to go to
the day game. The day game was great. Yeah. We were home by 6:30. Yeah. It wasn't too bad. But we ended up getting Hall of Fame seat tickets.
Nice.
For $23 a pop.
Oh wow!
It was a steal.
Wow.
And so again, maybe it was all those things put together, but it was perfect for us. And it wasn't a super hot day, so we were able to be outside. But as you said, if it was June,
they're the best.
You just duck into the Hall of Fame club and sit in the AC for a little bit. But it was. I don't know how you felt the first time you brought your kids to the ballpark, but we were out in the club box in the club level for a little bit, and Bridget was finishing up eating, and I took the baby, and I was like, I'm I'm just taking him down to the seats. And I said, I'll see you later. You meet us down here whenever. And he and I just sat, and I sat him on my lap, and we just sat and watched the game. And the game restarted. It was in the bottom of the 7th or whatever, and the game restarted. And I sat there and I went, this is the coolest moment ever.
So many sights and sounds. And
he was doing the baby faces of like wide-eyed. Yeah, everything was amazing
It's
to
the
him.
biggest thing you've ever seen. Like, I distinctly remember my first walk into Veterans Stadium and walking out on the upper concourse, the 700 level, and like walking out because we went up. We were either sitting up there or we went up there just to see the stadium, and like seeing the stadium in front of me. I'm young, probably 4 or 5.
Sure.
It's a memory. It probably wasn't the first time I was there, but just being like, this is the Roman Coliseum.
Yeah.
This is the largest thing I've ever seen.
And by that point, the vet was a dump.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So one takeaway is the first thing that his eyes kind of glossed over to inside the ballpark
Hot dogs
was the scoreboard.
Okay.
Because he's so addicted to TV. And we were joking. We're like, you think you could get Miss Rachel on there? He'd be in heaven.
Miss Rachel got that.
But that's all that happened. That's all that's on in my house anymore is baseball and Miss Rachel.
Yeah, it's good.
But it was an incredible experience. So I knew you'd appreciate it having two kids that love the team as much as you do.
Yeah.
All right, Jamie, appreciate you. Thank you for stopping in for a little bit.
Great weekend of baseball ahead.
It really is. One thing I do want to bring up is I said 1 of 3. Your thoughthoughts on the series?
I'm like oddly optimistic. I think they take the series.
Okay.
I don't know. The 8-0 just tells me that they're due for a loss.
I mean, yeah, they're going to lose at some point. They're not going 162-0.
A lot of people are saying that, Tyler. They're
not me, but a lot of people.
A lot of people are saying they're not going to go 162-0. I think the Phils take the series.
2 out of 3 would be spectacular.
Oh.
Because, you've played 2 teams that aren't going to be great this year.
No.
And so this is...
It's a test.
It's a test early in the season, but it's a test.
But the boys are hitting. You're getting to bullpens. I don't expect the starting pitching kind of shutout of this offense to continue. I think they're going to get to a starting pitcher this weekend. Like Glasnow to me feels like a guy they're going to get to. I think Roki Sasaki, I think the fans are going to feed. If he has any sort of struggles, the fans are going to pounce his ass.
And Philly fans are cerebral. Yeah. They saw the clip.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to get brought up.
Oh, yeah. If he has some like first or second inning hits allowed, that place is going to get
cry
loud.
about it.
Yeah, that place is going to get loud. He's going to get shook. I feel good. Could be Philly's optimism glasses early in the season.
Phillies went 5-1 against the Dodgers last year. Which
I like them.
I'll take it.
All
right, Jamie. Appreciate you. More to come on the PHOI Phillies podcast in just a little bit. We'll wrap up the show. But before we do that, let's pause for just a moment and tell you about some of our friends here at PHOI. Let's tell you about some of our friends here at PHOI in just a moment. Listen, buying anything in bulk or buying anything that's going to be a significant change to your home can be a difficult task and sometimes a little bit overwhelming. But when you're looking at flooring, there's no better place than Empire Today, because Empire Today, that's what they do. They do flooring. They are the flooring experts. They have dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. And you may have gone to one of those big box stores that sells this and that and this and that and flooring. And while the selection may be good and the help may be okay, sometimes you're dealing with people who work in a different department or they're covering a shift for the person who works in flooring. When you deal with Empire, you are dealing with the most professional, best employees you possibly can, and that's what they do. They do flooring. You don't have to worry about dealing with somebody who sometimes doesn't cover flooring. It's all about Empire. Flooring is all they do at Empire Today. And why are they best for your new floors? Because they live and breathe flooring, and they'll be with you every step of the way. It becomes an entirely different experience. Their flooring experts will bring their showroom right to your home. So you have the ability to go to empiretoday.com and pick out the right flooring and the right colors for your spaces, and you're going to be able to see how it looks with your furniture in your house. And you can do that with just a couple clicks of a button. Upload a photo, and you can see exactly how the floors are going to look, and whatever it may be, whether it's hardwood, it's carpet, it's tile, whatever the case may be, you're going to be able to see what it looks like without having to leave the comfort of your home. And when they do have the ability to come into your house and start installing, you're going to get precise measurements. So you're not going to have to worry about a wrong, incorrect measurement. You're just going to get the work done by incredible professional installers. And they will walk you through the entirety of the process. And if you have any questions, they will answer all of your questions so that there are no surprises whatsoever. With Empire Today, you get clear, upfront, and all-inclusive pricing. Plus, you can schedule installation as soon as the next day because, listen, nobody wants to wait around for things anymore. You want your upgrades done immediately. So schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive a $350 discount when they use the promo code PHLY. That's right, $350 discount with the code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday.com/PHLY for full details. And of course, our friends over at Parx Casino. When people tell you sometimes it's my hometown casino of choice or it's my favorite casino, listen, I'm not lying. It has been my hometown casino of choice for basically my entire life. I have lived in Bensalem basically my entire life, and that's exactly where Parx Casino is located. Off the street road exits of the Turnpike, end of 95. It's convenient and easy to get to, and once you get there, you are not going to want to leave. But if you don't have the ability to get to Parx Casino in person, that's okay because Parx Casino online has you covered. One of the best things about Parx and Parx Casino is the Bet Parx app. They have all of the games that you love to play in person. You can do that right on the app. They have pop culture slots, roulette, cards. And so I like to play blackjack. And so sometimes I don't want to get it off my couch. I just go right to the Bet Parx app and I play some blackjack right there with a live dealer. And I feel like I'm at the casino while I sit on the comfort of my couch. They have dice games and so much more that you can play right on the Bet Parx app. Bet Parx Casino has all the games you love, whether you are at home or on the go. They have incredible slots, as they mentioned, pop culture slots. As a kid who grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s, Andrew, you can attest to this too. One of the movies that had a grip on my life was Goonies.
Oh,
They have a Goonies slot that you can play right there on the Bet Parx app. Download the Bet Parx app today and create an account today to receive an offer that you just simply can't pass up. New users will be eligible to receive up to $1,000 back if you're down in the first 24 hours after signing up. Bet Parx Online Casino is available in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, and Michigan. Terms and conditions apply. Parx Casino, this is how you win. Must be 21 and older. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast here on the PHLY Network and the All City Network as well. Brought to you by Bet365, where it's never ordinary. At Bet365, Tyler Zulli, Andrew Frazier, as we wrap up today's show. Just a couple more minutes as we get out of here. Jamie and I really previewed the Dodger series coming up, so I'm not going to do it too much in more detail. But the one thing I did want to bring up was the starting pitching, the inability to hit starting pitching that the Phillies have had so far this year. Listen, they've really struggled against starters between the National Series and the Rocky series, even though they are 5-1. They've only had scored 5 earned runs against starting pitching over 35 and a third innings pitched. That's a 1.27 ERA. And it's no secret that both of those teams had a lot of success with their starters. Not so much with the bullpen. Their bullpens were amongst the league's worst so far. Last year, they were amongst the league's worst. The Rockies were the league's worst. And so far this year, the Nationals and Rockies have really struggled with their bullpens because of the fact that the Phillies have tacked on a ton of runs against their bullpen. But the starters for the Dodgers are not the only weapon that they have. The Dodgers bullpen is much better than the two teams that they've faced so far heading into this series against Los Angeles. A ton of different guys can beat you. Blake Trinan has had success with them. Alex Vesia has had success with them. Kirby Yates has had success with them. You know the Dodgers bullpen because it's so darn good. Through 8 games, the Dodgers have the 4th best bullpen ERA at 1.83. They also have a sub-1 whip as a unit, and over 39 and a third innings pitched, they have struck out 54 hitters. Opponents are hitting just 184 against them. They've had a lot of success with their starting pitching, but their bullpen has shut the door night in and night out to start the season. So it can't be as simple for the Phillies offense as to say, well, we'll get to the bullpen eventually. Don't worry about the starters. As long as we get to the bullpen, we'll be fine. This Dodgers bullpen will bury you if you try to have that mentality. Before we go any further, I do want to say thank you to everybody on our streaming services. If you want to continue to watch as we head on into our overtime period, head on over to allphly.com to watch the remainder of the show. And with that, let's head on into overtime. Yeah, we head on into overtime. It's not going to be a long overtime today. Just wanted to say hello to everybody in the chat. Pat Ryan, K-Red, Molly and Barkley's Life earlier. Thanks so much to everybody who hung out with us today. Phillies 3-game set with the Dodgers tonight. Beginning tonight, the pitching matchups will be as followed. The Phillies send Jesus Luzardo to the mound today as he will be opposed by Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Tomorrow, it'll be Aaron Nola versus Roki Sasaki. And then the one that I think I'm most excited about, Christopher Sanchez versus Tyler Glasnow. If you've heard me talk on this show over the last couple of years, you know I'm a big Tyler Glasnow fan, and the injuries have really derailed him over really the course of his career. But when he's pitching and available, he is one of the more nasty pitchers in baseball. I think this is going to be a really, really good pitching matchup and a really good pitching matchup weekend, as both of these teams, in my opinion, have two of the three best starting rotations in baseball. And if you want to say Phillies, Dodgers, Mariners, that's cool. If you want to say Dodgers, Phillies, Mariners, that's cool. If you want to move the Mariners up, that's cool. I think all three of these teams have claim to the three best rotations in baseball, and I think this is going to be an excellent pitching matchup for the Phillies and the Dodgers. Real quick before we get out of here, big thanks to K-Red for the super chat there. K-Red says, thanks for making the time at work go a little faster. K-Red, we always appreciate you. We always appreciate everybody hanging out today, so thank you for the super chat. And for the conversation throughout the course of the week. What's this conversation going on about Lord of the Rings, Andrew? Because you've piqued my interest.
No, they were talking about the Goonies, and they were talking about Samwise from Lord of the Rings being in the Goonies. And someone said that
That's right.
Someone said, I think it was Pat Ryan, said that his 8-year-old nephew was watching the Goonies, and he had a reference to Sean Astin as a guy from Stranger Things.
It's so funny. Like, my first thought when I think of Sean Astin is Samwise. Because I'm a diehard Lord of the Rings fan. I know you are as well.
Not Stranger Things.
But there is a generation that would be the first thing they think of as Sean Astin is Bob in Stranger Things, right?
That's true, yeah.
But there's also a generation before you and I, Andrew, that thinks of Sean Astin. Who do they think of?
Goonies.
They think of Rudy.
Rudy, yes,
right?
yes.
And so it's funny that an actor who's had a long,
really
played
long
out career, who's been in a lot of awesome movies, if you went generation by generation, might be considered a different role by the generation above us versus our generation versus the generation below us.
That's true. Yeah.
I didn't even, it's funny
think about that.
because Bob from Stranger Things might be the first time they ever saw. It's kind of like, so I'm a huge Metallica fan, right?
Sure, yeah.
It's kind of like there was a lot of Metallica fans and a lot of metalheads who were like, you're not a real Metallica fan. You heard Metallica on Stranger Things for the first time. And I'm like, didn't we all hear music for the first time somewhere?
Yeah.
Right? Like, I've said this many, many times. My music taste was dictated a lot by the video games that we played growing up.
Oh, yeah.
The sports game soundtracks changed my life.
Oh, yeah. I lived in
Tony Hawk.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Any of the Maddens.
Yep.
I always talk about MVP Baseball 2005 as like one of the premier soundtracks.
Yep.
But like, those soundtracks shaped my life. And so who cares where you find entertainment, right? And so I've always found the gatekeeping of music so weird, especially in the metal. And we're way off topic, but this is something something I'm passionate about, especially in the metal scene. Metal is I don't want to call it like a niche audience anymore because it's grown pretty significantly, and there's a lot of more acceptance of metal recently.
My nephew's a metalhead.
Yeah, you were telling me your nephew's like 3 and he loves Slipknot, and that's so cool to me. But like metal now, like you don't have like Tipper Gore going and saying it's, in front of Congress and saying it's satanic.
No,
right?
You don't have that.
And Knocked Loose is a band who won a Grammy, and Poppy went from pop to being a metal artist. But the point is, like, gatekeeping is so dumb to me. And especially for metalheads, like, it's not pop, it's not hip hop, it's not the popular music of today. I want people to like metal. It's something that gives me joy, and I want you to. And if you don't like it, that's totally cool. But like it's so, gatekeeping music is so weird to me. Gatekeeping anything really is so weird to me.
Yeah, it really is.
But Get a couple of comments. Yeah, Tony Hawk, MVP Baseball, like those soundtracks shaped my life as a kid. And I found a lot of ATV Off-Road Fury was another one. I always remember that game.
Yes.
That had a great soundtrack. Oh my God, we're
Grand
so
Theft
off.
Auto.
Yeah.
Guitar Hero.
WWE.
WWE.
They shaped my life as a music fan. So to put a bow on this whole entirely offbeat conversation, gatekeeping's lame. Yes, I agree with that comment. And enjoy what you enjoy and let other people enjoy what they enjoy. But to put a bow on this entire conversation, Sean Astin had a really cool career. And,
yes, he did.
And the Phillies have a series against the Dodgers this weekend. So thank you to everybody who tuned in. I really appreciate you. Again, you can catch this show after it airs right here on YouTube, or you can catch it on any of our streaming platforms and, of course, on allphoi.com. If you are not a diehard, I urge you to do so. If you have the ability to do so, you get some incredible featured conversations that you don't see here on YouTube with some of our awesome writers like Charlie O'Connor with the Flyers, Kyle Neubeck with the Sixers, Zach and Bo with the Eagles coverage, Jim Salisbury with the Phillies coverage, and so much more. So we'll be back on Monday for our live 1 o'clock show, as always. I hope you all have an excellent weekend. Enjoy this weekend. Weather's supposed to be a little rainy, but a little bit warmer today and tomorrow, so I hope you have the ability to get out and enjoy it while you can. Enjoy the Phillies series. We'll be back to recap the Phillies and the Dodgers, and we'll start our conversation thinking about the Braves and the Cardinals next week when we're back with you at 1 o'clock. So have an excellent weekend, and we'll talk to you on Monday at 1 right here on PHOI.
We all silly like the mayor.